If you're following along with our musical playlist, you can hit play on the first track and bring the hands to the hip points, so the bony part of the pelvis just above the hip crease. And start to play without moving the feet, just isometrically push the feet forward away from you and notice how that impacts your pelvis. You might feel the pelvis tilting back a little bit and the core slightly engaging. And then opposite movement, drag the feet towards you and notice how that pulling action as the heels drag in towards the glute starts to arch the back. And now at your own pace, play with that push and pull. The feet don't actually move, but just that direction, that energetic pushing forward or pulling back, ripples up the legs into the pelvis and into the core. And it doesn't matter if you're inhaling or exhaling, but sync one movement with one breath. Start, I guess so we're on the same page. Let's start by inhaling as the heels drag in and the body arches, and exhaling as the feet push away and the low back connects to the earth. And resist the temptation of having the breath exaggerate the movement. Instead, let the breath be really soft and easy. And do a little bit less so that the feet and the hamstrings don't get too tired here. But notice how the pushing and pulling of the feet even affects you all the way up to the neck and the skull. You might notice a little pushing and pulling on the cranial fascia at the place where the skull meets the mat. And then come back to stillness, pause, relax, stretch the legs out, reach the arms overhead, and let the whole body soften. Even though those were very tiny movements, sometimes the smaller the movement, the harder the core has to work. So let everything go here. Let the elbows be soft. It's okay to let the toes fall out to the side, letting everything release for a moment. And then interlace the hands, or just bring fingertips to the occiput. That's the big bulbous part at the back of the skull where all the neck muscles attach into the skull. Start to drag one heel in. It doesn't matter which one because you'll do the other one in a second. And as you drag that heel in, feel the contact between the back of the foot and the mat. Take in the texture of the yoga mat, and then eventually allow the sole of the foot to connect to the yoga mat just as it was before. Drag the opposite heel, same thing. And then reverse direction, so the leg extends, the other leg extends, and now the opposite leg drags in. Now as you play with this on your own, at your own pace, moving slowly and consciously, start to notice how the pelvis and the spine respond, and see if you can keep the pelvis and the spine neutral as the leg moves. And if you are doing that correctly, it will take the work of the deep core. So you might notice that brightening action in the inner thighs, in the pelvic floor, in the muscles close to the spine. Maybe even the more superficial core muscles that wrap around the core cylinder. And the next time both feet are in, pause there and imagine that you can see your feet right now. Imagine you're trying to draw a picture of your feet, and imagine your big toe, the 4 other toes, the heel, and notice if just imagining them helps your awareness sink down, really observing the feet from the inside out. Start to gently push into the feet, reach the knees forward just to unweight your pelvis, and then set everything back down. As the pelvis comes back down, relax as deeply as possible. That might mean the knees even fall out a little bit as the hip adductors soften. And then repeat that by pushing into feet, dragging the knees forward, letting the pelvis and the bottom vertebra start to lift. Do this a few times on your own and start to notice how the action originates at the feet. So all of the support for the knees, the pelvis, the vertebra that are lifting is coming from your intelligent feet. And as you trace that pathway, know that you can always adjust the placement of the feet. Perhaps trying the feet a little wider, the heels a little closer to the glutes or further away. We're always going to experiment and observe and find the place that is the most supportive for you, and that's going to be different than what's the most supportive for me. So I'm not going to tell you what it looks like. The next time the hips are up, slowly start to lower them towards the right. Let them touch down a little asymmetrically and then drag them across the mat to the left. And start to make circles with the hips in this way. And you don't have to lift them very high through the center, but just start to play with this asymmetry in your bridge pose. And notice if different muscles start to turn on in the legs. We've got 3 or 4 different hamstrings depending on who you ask. As the hips sway, it transfers the weight into different hamstrings. Same situation in the erector spinae, the muscles along the spine. As we sway the hips, we give the muscles towards the lateral edge, the outer edge of the body, more of a chance to turn on instead of always focusing right at the center. Next time the hips settle down, let's go the opposite way. And start to pay attention to how the weight shifts in the feet as you do this. And try to keep the big toes anchored. As the big toes anchor, there's no tension, there's no gripping. Just helps the arches of the feet engage. We'll just take 2 more circles and imagine as the back body glides across the mat that you're smearing away any tension. Physical, but also energetic, stuff you don't even know is in there. And then set the hips down, reach the legs up towards the sky, and yay, you get to see your beautiful feet now. Look at your feet. Try to spread your toes out. Shake out the legs a little bit. Let the feet be really soft. And it might feel cheesy, but just try it. Try to find a little bit of love for your feet. You know, we don't look at them a lot. We don't pay attention to them, but they carry us around all day. Point the feet. Flex the feet, try spreading the toes, circling the ankles a little bit. Become very curious about this almost like hidden part of us. And the more you look at the feet, the weirder they get, don't they? You're like, what are those things? And then set the feet back down. Keep the hands where they are. Similar to our rolls from last week, but we'll keep the arms, the fingertips behind the occiput, and we'll just see how that changes our roll. So roll onto your left side. Let the elbows come towards one another, kind of like a fetal position. And breathe into the back of the body. Let the back of the neck lengthen. And then lift the top elbow and the top knee at the same time and let that start to pull you over the back body all the way to the other side. And if at any time it's uncomfortable with the arms to do it in this way, you can release them and do it with the arms extended. But I have found that this is helping me isolate the movement more in my core and make it less about my shoulders. So just explore how that is for you. Appreciate the massage you're getting on the sides of the hips, the back of the body. And the next time you roll towards me, so towards the left side, release the right hand, push into the right hand so you can come up to Bharadvajasana, so those nice staggered legs. Take your time if that's a new transition. Hi, everybody. Let the left hand float up effortlessly. Allow the left side body to open and breathe into the rib cage as well as the left hip. If you notice the rib cage lifting a lot, imagine lifting more from the hip and notice if that integrates the left side body a little more. Nice, Roseanne. That looked beautiful. Take a couple of breaths here. Keep the shoulder soft. You can even bend the elbow so you don't overdo it in the shoulder. And then gently let the left side of the body close, pulling you up to neutral. Cross the right leg in front of the left and take a moment to pause in Sukhasana. If this isn't a comfortable position, find your favorite seated position, but notice the left side of the body. Push down a little extra into the left leg and notice how that supports the hip and the spine, and try to do it without tension. And then we'll come over to the other side. So paw the hands down, thread the right arm through so that you can make your way onto your back. And we'll add on to our core sequence from the second side. So building on some of the deep core stuff that we've been doing the past few weeks, let's begin by hovering the shins to parallel with the earth. And notice if the low back arches when you do that, and see if you can gently lengthen the tailbone forward so that the low back is nice and long, but not necessarily flat. And then keep your hands on your hips for this first round. Touch one toe down. Notice what engages to do this, and then switch sides. I like to exhale as the toe touches down. And then once you've got the hang of that, interlace the fingers at the occiput. This just keeps the chest nice and open as you engage the core. We'll add on. So touch the right toes down, keeping the pelvis neutral. Let the right knee start to open off to the side. So you've got external hip rotation with core engagement. And then as the knee points up to the sky, let the leg unfurl, kicking up to the sky. And take one breath here, wiggle the toes, and then slowly start to melt the right leg all the way forward. Try to release all tension in the hip as you do this. Keep the pelvis neutral. And then drag the right foot in just like you did before. Push into the sole of the right foot. Reach the right knee forward. Half bridge, which is twice as hard, right? Because you've only got one support system. So don't worry about coming up very high, but notice the glutes engaging on the right side. And then we'll repeat that. So set the hips down. Let the right knee externally rotate. As it points up to center, leg unfurls. And then keeping a neutral pelvis, try kicking out through the heel. Sometimes that helps you get more support in the back of the leg line. And then once the heel sets down, great. Drag it in at your own pace. Plant the sole of the foot, anchor the big toe, and gently reach the knee forward. Doesn't matter how high the hips go, just make sure you feel supported. And then slowly drape the spine back down and allow the left knee to start to point to the left, keeping the left shoulder anchored. So it's not going to go very far. Take a breath here. And then allow the left arm to lift so you roll onto the side. Before we repeat the second side, let's take some of those nice, easy, slow rolls. You can keep the hands where they are, or if at any time you want to reach the arms out and that's more comfortable, that's totally fine. Moving slowly here is key because that means that the limbs are integrating into the core. Maybe you can even feel where the legs, specifically the inner thighs, connect to the base of the core cylinder at the pelvic floor. And then take your time. We'll meet on our back so that we can do the second side of that core exercise. Just for fun, let's take one bridge pose with both feet on the ground and maybe even notice a difference. For me, I'm noticing that my right leg feels a lot more solid after having to bear all the weight on its own. Find some gratitude for having extra support. Gently drape the spine down. We specifically have taken our arms out of the equation, so the feet and legs have to be your support system. So it's okay if it feels harder. That's part of it. Take a moment to hover the shins, find your neutral pelvis. And again, it's not about flattening the spine, but rather feeling really supported and secure and not overarching. Take a couple of toe taps on the exhale, switching legs just to warm up. And then the next time the left toes tap down, you can start to open the knee off to the side. And it's not going to go as far as you might be used to flexibility-wise, and that's actually a good thing. Slowly push into the foot, let the knee point up, and then let the leg unfurl. Flex the foot, wiggle the toes, circle the foot, anything that feels good. And then gently start to kick out through the heel. Let the front of the body melt, allowing the leg to lengthen down towards the earth. And then drag the left heel in, awakening the calf and the hamstring, even the back body. Place the sole of the foot down and allow that to help you lift into single-legged bridge pose. Take your time, melt the spine down, and then we repeat, starting with our half buttock Konasana, letting the knee drift out to the side while staying connected to the core. So it's not about finding your end range. And then as it comes back to center, allow the leg to unfurl. Find a little freedom in that movement. Yay. And then take your time with this one. And it is really challenging, so be compassionate. Reach through the heel and find how much you can support the leg from the musculature that's above the hip. And then drag the heel in one last time. Set the right foot down. And we'll do one more bridge pose. And notice if there's any sense of ease. Take a breath. And then release everything down. We go into our rolls. Moving slowly. Reaching for a sense of connection, weightlessness, and ease. The next time you're rolling towards the right, which should be towards me, release the left hand, push into the left hand so you can press up into your Vajrasana. Free the right arm, let the right side body open, and play with lifting the right hip. It's not actually going to lift, right? It's going to stay on the earth, but notice how energetically lifting through the right hip lets the whole right side body open. The ribs stay integrated. Breathe into that integrated space. And then gently let the right side of the body close so it's pulling down to pull you back to center. Cross the left leg in front and take a moment at center. And stack the hands in the lap. I like to do Jnana Mudra with the top hand, that's thumb and forefinger together, just letting everything circulate for a moment. Close the eyes, connect to the breath. Even though the feet aren't your foundation here, notice if you're able to feel the feet. Maybe there's even a tingling or a sense of the feet being awake.